The sky was not supposed to bleed fire that day, but it did as the alien fleet broke through the atmosphere like thunder, made solid and sharp. Everyone in the outpost stared at the burning clouds in silence. No one had ever seen ships that moved like that, sliding sideways without engines, glowing blue like ocean lightning trapped in metal. Corporal Jace Holden dropped his ration bar before he could take a bite. His breath caught in his throat as the warning siren screamed louder then. The engines, they were not supposed to be at war. The treaty had held for decades. The diplomats had smiled, the handshakes had been real. But those weren't peace ships above them. Those were weapons wrapped in beauty. The first strike hit the ridge beyond the base. Snow turned to steam. Ice became glass. Half the sky exploded. Jace ran, dragging a young medic with him into the trenches. No one had orders yet. No one needed them. Survival was all that mattered now. The aliens had not made contact before landing. They didn't speak. They didn't broadcast. They just walked out of their drop pods and began firing. They didn't wear uniforms like humans. They wore silver armor that looked grown instead of built. And at the front of them all was a woman with eyes like frost and lips stained red like spilled berries in snow. The soldiers called her the Ice Maiden before they even knew her name. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. Her weapon pulsed with cold light, freezing rifles in human hands before bullets could leave the barrel. And still she walked forward, not dodging, not rushing. Just walking through the chaos as if the war had been waiting for her arrival. Jace saw her only once in the early hours. He aimed his rifle at her. His scope fogged over. She turned and looked directly at him from across the battlefield. He should have pulled the trigger, but his finger froze just like the steel around it. In that moment, he was not looking at an enemy. He was looking at something ancient and powerful. Something. Alone, the Earth forces tried to push them back. Drone strikes. Air raids. None of it stopped her. Every time they thought she was gone, she walked out of the snow again like a ghost wrapped in frost. Some said she wasn't even alive. Some said she was a machine built to look beautiful and deadly. But Jace had seen her bleed on the third day of fighting. She led a charge that broke the outer line of the mountain base. That's when Jace saw her stumble. She had taken a direct hit. Her armor cracked. She fell to one knee. Then something strange happened. Her soldiers froze too. Every one of them stopped moving. As if her pain had stopped their will, Jace ran forward without thinking. Gunfire snapped around him. Snow exploded near his boots. But he kept going. He didn't know why. Maybe it was madness. Maybe it was instinct. All he knew was that the most feared creature in the war was on the ground, dying in the cold. And something inside him refused to let her vanish like that. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Her lips trembled. Frost climbed up her cheeks like vines. Her hand reached out, not for a weapon but for him. Her voice cracked like ice breaking under weight. She whispered in a language he didn't understand. But the way she said it sounded like a question. Her fingers brushed his glove. She was freezing. Her body was shutting down. But her eyes never stopped watching him. Not with hatred, not with fear, but with something almost human. Something like confusion and hope mixed into one. Jace took off his glove and pressed his bare hand to hers. The cold bit into his skin like fire. Her armor hissed at the contact. Her breath hitched. Her eyelids fluttered. And then, slowly, the snow stopped falling around them, as if the world itself paused to see what came next. He didn't know who she was. He didn't know why she had attacked. But in that moment, he knew one thing with painful clarity. He couldn't let her die alone in the cold. Jace didn't expect her to survive the hour, but somehow she did. Her body shook in his arms as he carried her toward the shelter. Each step was harder than the last. Snow reached his knees. Shrapnel rained in the distance. He didn't stop to explain to anyone why he was helping the enemy. Some soldiers shouted at him, a few raised weapons, but no one fired. They saw her face, pale and weak, blue lips barely moving. And maybe they saw what he saw too. She wasn't a monster anymore. She was just a dying girl in the snow. He laid her down inside a supply tent near the back lines. The heater barely worked. The lights flickered. It was all they had. He wrapped her in old thermal blankets, then pressed a heat pack against her chest where the armor had split. Her eyes opened slowly. She stared at the ceiling like she didn't know what it was. Then she looked at him. Her lips moved, soundless at first. Then a word came out, quiet and broken. "Why?" she asked, in perfect English. Jace blinked. "Why what?" he asked. Back, stunned she could speak his language. Her hand moved weakly toward him. "Why save me?" she said, as if the question itself hurt her to ask. He didn't have a clear answer. He just said, "Because you looked lost." Her eyes softened. She looked confused again. Maybe she expected hate. Maybe she expected death. But not kindness. Not from a human. More soldiers arrived at the tent. One of them was Lieutenant Kramer. He looked at Jace like he was insane. "You brought that thing into our camp?" he asked with anger in his voice. Jace stood up, his body tense. "She's not a thing. She's a prisoner now. And maybe more," he said. Kramer didn't argue long. They had bigger problems. Another wave of attacks had just started. The Ice Maiden lay still as they spoke. Her skin was warmer now. Not warm, but not ice either. She was stabilizing. Barely. Outside, the war kept going. Human soldiers fought harder now, not out of pride, but out of desperation. Supplies were running out. Communications were broken. Many started to believe the planet was lost. Inside the tent, Jace stayed by her side. He gave her water through a straw. He fed her bits of rations when she could eat. She never spoke more than a few words, but she watched him with sharp, thoughtful eyes. One night during a blizzard, she finally asked him something different. "What is warmth?" she whispered. The question made him pause. "It's heat, comfort, safety," he said simply. She shook her head. "Not that. What you gave me." "What you gave with your hands," she said. Jace understood what she meant. Warmth was more than just heat. It was something deeper. A choice to care, even for someone you don't understand. A risk taken not for glory, but for compassion. The Ice Maiden, whose name he still didn't know, reached out again. This time, she took his hand without shaking. Her fingers were cold, but not dangerous. Her armor no longer froze his skin. "Leora," she said suddenly. "My name is Leora." It was the first time she spoke like a person, not a soldier. He smiled. "Jace," he replied. And their names hung between them like a small fire in a cold cave. Later that night, she told him something that changed everything. The attack wasn't planned by her people. It wasn't a war of choice. It was punishment. Her kind had sent her to die here with a squad of exiles. They were never meant to survive. Jace listened without interrupting. She explained that her world believed Earth was cursed. Anyone who touched a human would be tainted. That's why she had walked ahead of her army. That's why she never spoke. She was ready to die. Then he touched her, and she lived. He didn't know what to say. The war wasn't what they thought it was. Earth had been used as a symbol, not a battlefield. But now something had changed. The Ice Maiden hadn't just survived. She had spoken. She had chosen to be saved. Jace looked out through the crack in the tent flap. Snow blew sideways across the base. The wind howled like ghosts. Somewhere out there, more aliens waited to die, not to win. He looked back at Leora. She had closed her eyes again, but this time she wasn't fading. She was resting. And maybe, for the first time in her life, she was no longer alone. The next morning, Jace woke to the sound of boots crunching in snow just outside the tent. He reached for his rifle without thinking. His eyes moved to Leora, who was still asleep, her chest rising slowly under layers of patched blankets. Then, the tent flap opened and Captain Darnell stepped in. His sharp eyes locked on the figure lying in the corner. Jace stood quickly, blocking her from view. "You're harboring an enemy," Darnell said flatly. Jace nodded but didn't move. "She surrendered," he replied. "She's not a threat now. She gave us intel." Darnell raised an eyebrow. "What kind of intel?" Jace didn't answer immediately. He looked at Leora and remembered the things she had whispered last night. The truth about her people's mission, the exile, the false war. Things that could shift everything if proven real. "She said this invasion was a lie," Jace said. "They sent her here to die, not to conquer. They fear us more than we know. They think contact with humans is a curse. Her presence here might be proof of something bigger." Darnell listened without speaking. Then he walked past Jace and stood over Leora, her eyes opened slowly. She didn't look afraid, she looked ready. Darnell didn't speak to her, he just studied her like a puzzle missing pieces. Then he turned to Jace again. "You have 1 day," he said. 1 day to get something useful out of her. If she's lying, or if this is some alien trick, I'm putting a bullet in her head myself. When he left, Jace sat beside her again. "That went better than I expected," he said. Leora's lips curved slightly. "You protected me. Even from your own people," she said. Jace nodded. "I told you. I'm not going to let you die here." She sat up slowly. Her strength was returning, but her hands still trembled. "You need proof," she said. "They won't believe words. Not from me." Jace waited. She reached into her armor and pulled out a small glowing shard. "This is a memory crystal," she said. "It records what I see, what I feel, my orders, my truth." She handed it to him carefully. "Show this to your leaders. Let them see what I saw, what they made me do." Jace held the crystal like it was a heartbeat in solid form. It pulsed gently, cold and warm at once. He had never seen alien tech so delicate. He knew what it could mean. If it was real, it could stop the war before it burned the whole planet. That evening, Jace met Darnell again and gave him the crystal. The captain didn't say a word, he just walked off with it. Jace returned to the tent feeling heavier than ever. Leora was waiting, her hands clasped together, eyes distant. "They'll see your truth," he said. "And then what?" she asked. "Will they let me live?" Jace didn't answer right away. He didn't know. "I will," he finally said. "I'll fight for you. If they come for you, they'll have to get past me first." That night, the cold outside deepened. Winds howled against the walls of the camp. But inside the tent, something small and quiet warmed the air. Leora reached out and took Jace's hand without asking. Her fingers were steadier now. Her skin didn't burn with frost anymore. "Why are you like this?" she asked softly. "You have every reason to hate me, to kill me. Why care?" Jace thought for a while. "Because I've seen enough death," he said. "And I still believe in life, even if it comes from somewhere else." They sat in silence for a long time. Not in fear, not in doubt, but in something fragile and new. Trust was forming between them. Not because they understood each other completely, but because they wanted to try. The next morning, alarms echoed through the camp. Darnell returned with a grim face. "We've reviewed the crystal. It checks out. Orders are changing. A ceasefire has been requested. High Command wants to meet her alive." Jace smiled for the first time in days. Leora's eyes widened. "They listened?" she whispered. "They actually listened?" Jace nodded. "You did it. You changed something. Maybe more than you know. But nothing good comes without cost." Moments later, a message came through. An alien kill squad had landed nearby. Leora's people had detected the truth signal. Now they wanted to erase her before it spread. Jace tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then we move now," he sighed. "We get you out of here before they reach us." Liara stood on her own for the first time, weak but standing. She looked up at him with fierce eyes. "Let's go," she said. Together, they stepped into the snow as the wind began to rise. Jace led Liara out of the base under cover of early light. The sky was a pale gray, thick with low clouds. Snowflakes drifted like ash. He kept one hand on his rifle and the other near her in case she stumbled. She didn't speak, but her breathing was steady now. Every step away from the camp felt heavier. Not because of the snow, but because of what they were leaving behind. Trust was hard to come by in war. And now Jace was risking everything for a girl who had once led an enemy army. They moved toward the northern ridge, where an old Cums outpost had been abandoned weeks ago. If they reached it, they could send a private signal to the ceasefire. Delegation, that was the plan. But plans in war rarely survive the first mile. Liara kept up better than expected. Her wounds were deep, but something inside her refused to let her fall. Maybe it was survival. Maybe it was something more. Maybe it was the way Jace kept glancing back to check on her without saying a word. Halfway up the slope, they spotted shadows in the distance. 4 dark figures moving fast and low through the snow. Alien shapes. Too smooth, too perfect. The kill squad. Jace ducked behind a ridge, pulling Liara with him. She didn't panic. Her eyes locked on the squad and her jaw clenched. "They are my kind," she said. "But they are not my people anymore." He handed her a sidearm. "Can you use it?" he asked. She nodded. "Not well. But I'll try," she said. That was enough for him. Trust didn't mean being fearless. It meant standing anyway. They split up briefly to draw the squad apart. Jace moved left, firing. Short bursts to distract them. Liara crept along the rocks, taking high ground. One alien spotted her and charged forward. She held her breath and fired. The shot missed wide. The alien raised its weapon. But before it could shoot, Jace came from behind and tackled it hard into the snow. The blast went off behind them, lighting the ridge in a flash of blue light. The 2 remaining enemies regrouped fast. They had no interest in Jace. Their eyes were locked on Liara. Her betrayal marked her for execution. And they would not stop until her name was erased from memory. Jace stood between her and the squad. "You'll have to go through me," he said. The aliens didn't speak. They raised their rifles. That's when Liara stepped forward again. She raised both hands and shouted something in her native tongue. Her voice echoed across the ridge, strong and sharp. The kill squad hesitated. Her words were not just speech. They were commands, ancient ones. Forbidden ones. For a moment, no one moved. Then one of the aliens lowered his weapon. Slowly, he dropped to one knee. The others turned toward him in confusion. Liara stepped closer and spoke again. Her voice carried weight, authority. Something inside those soldiers still recognized her. Not as an exile, but as a rightful leader. She had not just been sent to die. She had been royalty discarded for believing in peace. One soldier refused to submit. He lunged forward with a cry of rage. Jace fired once. The alien dropped silently into the snow. The last 2 hesitated, then backed away and vanished into the storm. Liara stood still for a moment, her arms slowly lowering. Her face showed no joy, only sadness. "I had to speak the words of command," she said. "It marks me forever. I can never return to them now." Jace nodded. "You already left them behind. But they're not the only ones who can offer you a place now." They continued toward the old Cums station. The sun had not risen, but light began to spill across the snow. Not warm light, but clear, clean, like a new beginning trying to rise through the ice. When they reached the building, Jace found the console still working. Barely. He transmitted the signal to command. The coded words were simple. Ceasefire confirmed. Target safe. Escort underway. Leora sat beside the broken wall, staring at the white world around her. "I don't feel like a weapon anymore," she said. "I feel like something else. Something I don't know yet." Jace sat beside her. "Maybe that's what freedom feels like," he said. She smiled gently. "Strange feeling," she whispered. They didn't know if command would come fast enough. They didn't know if the cold would take them first. But they knew one thing now. They were no longer enemies. They were no longer alone. Snow piled high against the old comm station walls as Jace adjusted the transmitter antenna. Static still filled the channel, but a pulse signal had been sent. Now all they could do was wait. Each second felt like it might break something inside. Leora sat near the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest. Her breathing was calm now. She didn't shiver anymore. Her body had adjusted to the cold, but her thoughts were far from still. She kept watching the door as if danger might appear from the snow. Jace turned back toward her. "You all right?" he asked. Leora gave a slow nod. "Yes, just remembering," she said. "I've been many things. A leader, a weapon, a ghost. But never a guest in a human place." He walked over and sat beside her. The wind outside howled like it was trying to pull the building apart. "It's not much," he said, "but you're safe here. And you're not a ghost anymore." Leora glanced at him. "No," she said softly. "Now I'm hunted for living." "That's different." A sudden beep interrupted their quiet. The console lights flashed. Jace stood fast and checked the message. A shuttle was inbound, human markings. Arrival in 20 minutes, extraction confirmed. Backup requested. He exhaled with relief. "They're coming. We're getting out of here," he said. Leora looked down at her hands. "Will they accept me?" she asked. "Will they see me as you do?" Jace didn't answer right away. He understood her fear. One man's trust didn't erase the hatred of a war. "I don't know," he said. "But I'll stand beside you when you meet them. And that matters." They began preparing to leave. Jace checked his rifle. Leora secured the armor pieces still functional. She wore them not to fight, but to show where she came from. If she had to face judgment, she would do so as herself. Before they stepped out into the cold again, Leora stopped. "If they try to take me away," she said, "will you stop them?" Jace looked into her eyes. "Yes," he said without hesitation. The snowstorm had faded slightly. Visibility was better. The sky was a pale silver. Far in the distance, the rumble of shuttle engines echoed faintly. Leora closed her eyes and breathed in the frozen air. They climbed to the top of a nearby ridge. From there, they could guide the shuttle to a clear landing. Jace lit a beacon and placed it on the highest rock. Leora stood beside him, her presence silent but strong. As the shuttle came into view, something else appeared on the horizon. Another ship, sleek, black, alien. Jace raised his rifle. "That's not ours," he said quickly. "More of your people?" Leora stepped forward, scanning the skies. "No," she said firmly. "That's not a kill squad. That's a hunter. A purifier class, sent only for one task. Erasure." The shuttle dropped toward the ridge, but the black ship moved faster. It launched 2 projectiles toward the human craft. Jace fired at them instinctively, but they were too far. The missiles arced toward the shuttle's path. Leora didn't hesitate. She jumped from the ridge and landed hard in the snow. Her hand reached into her belt and pulled out a glowing shard. She stabbed it into the ground. A burst of energy erupted upward like a pillar of blue light. The missiles swerved mid-air, distracted by the pulse. One exploded early, the other missed and spiraled away. The shuttle veered off course but stayed intact. It began descending again, faster now. Jace ran to Leora's side. She had fallen to her knees. Her body shook from the energy surge. I diverted them, she gasped. But they know I'm here now. They'll send more, stronger ones. He lifted her gently. Then we leave now, he said. We get inside that shuttle and we never look back. The human shuttle touched down near the base of the ridge. The back door opened and soldiers spilled out, weapons raised. They aimed at Jace. Then they saw the figure in his arms. Stand down, Jace shouted. This is the one who sent the ceasefire code. She saved your lives. She's coming with us. There was hesitation, but the commanding officer nodded. Bring her aboard, he ordered. Medics rushed forward. Leora didn't resist. Her eyes stayed locked on Jace the whole time. As they lifted off, she whispered to him, I am not theirs anymore. And I don't think I ever was. Asterisk inside the shuttle. The hum of engines and the soft buzz of medical equipment filled the air. Leora lay on a stretcher, covered in clean thermal blankets. Her eyes were open, tracking every movement. She looked calmer now, but not relaxed. She was not used to being protected. Jace sat beside her, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Every crew member who passed them looked curious. Some looked cautious. One even looked angry, but none said a word. Orders had been given, and they were following them. For now, a medic checked Leora's vitals and nodded. Stable, slight energy depletion. Core temperature rising to normal. No visible infections. Her biology's adjusting faster than expected, she said. Jace gave a small nod. She's stronger than she looks. The shuttle captain entered, a tall woman with gray eyes and a stiff posture. She glanced between them, then held out a data pad. High Command wants full debrief upon landing. They're expecting you both. She's to be treated as a diplomatic figure, not a prisoner. Leora looked at Jace when she heard that. What does that mean? She asked. He leaned close. It means you get to talk before they decide anything. You have a voice now. The journey back to the orbital station took less than an hour. As the ship broke atmosphere, the stars above shimmered through reinforced windows. Leora had never seen Earth from that high before. Her face tilted toward the light like she was breathing for the first time. Jace watched her carefully. She was still full of questions, still full of tension. But something had changed. She no longer flinched at the sound of human speech. She no longer looked away from human eyes. Her silence now came from thought, not fear. When they docked, the doors opened with a hiss. Armed guards waited outside, but none raised weapons. A path had been cleared. Officials in black uniforms stood at the end of the corridor. Their faces were unreadable. Jace stepped out first. Leora followed, slow and steady. She didn't hide her face. She walked tall. Her armor caught the station lights like glass touched by fire. She looked like a warrior, but her hands stayed open at her sides. In the debrief room, they were met by General Reese, one of the most powerful commanders in Earth's Defense Council. He studied them both for a long time before speaking. So, this is the infamous Ice Maiden, he said. Leora did not respond. Jace stepped forward. Her name is Leora, he said firmly. And she's the reason I'm alive. She's the reason half of your outposts are still standing. Reese raised an eyebrow. According to your report, she surrendered. Delivered alien intel, saved your shuttle. And now she seeks sanctuary. Why should we trust her? Leora answered. For herself, because I broke my people's silence. Because I turned against their hatred. Because I chose to live instead of obey, she said. Her voice was calm, but it cut like ice. The room went still. No one interrupted her. She continued. I was sent here to die. My success meant failure. My death meant silence. But your soldier offered a hand instead of a weapon. And I accepted it. Reese studied her. "What do you want now?" he asked. Liara looked toward Jace, then back at the general. "I want to help stop this war. I want to prove that peace is not weakness. I want to show them all what warmth feels like." A long silence followed. Then Reese stood. "You will stay under observation, but you'll not be harmed. We'll treat your presence as the beginning of a possible alliance. Your actions have bought you that much." Jace let out a breath he hadn't noticed he was holding. Liara bowed her head slightly. Not in submission, but in respect. A small gesture that meant more than words. They were given temporary quarters, not cells. Real rooms with warmth, light, and soft beds. Liara explored hers slowly, touching each object like it might vanish. "This is peace?" she asked. "It's strange," Jace smiled. "You'll get used to it," he said. "It doesn't bite." That night, Liara stood by the window in her room, staring at the stars. Jace stood beside her, arms folded. "You know they're still out there," she said. "My people, watching, waiting to erase me." "I know," he replied. "But they'll have to go through me first." Liara turned toward him. Her hand reached for his. "I don't want to be a symbol anymore," she whispered. "I just want to be free." The following days were quiet, but the silence felt like the calm before a storm. Jace kept a close eye on the news feeds. Something was coming. He could feel it. And so could Liara, who never stopped glancing over her shoulder when walking the station halls. She had adjusted faster than anyone expected. She learned how human systems worked. She learned how to ask questions without fear. But she also learned something deeper. She learned how to be herself without a title, without armor, without command. One evening, she and Jace were called back to the council chamber. The tone was different this time, sharper, nervous. Reports had come in. An alien warcruiser had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar border. No communications, no identification. Just watching. Liara stared at the projection of the vessel. She recognized its shape. "It's a Silence-class carrier," she said, "used for wiping out lost colonies. No one speaks on that ship. It's built for one purpose." "Erasure," General Reese leaned forward. "They're here for you," he sighed. "You broke their laws. You survived contact. You made peace. That threatens their entire control." Jay stood up. "So what do we do?" he asked. Reese didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Liara. "We need to know what they'll do next. You're the only one who might understand their next move." Liara walked closer to the screen. Her reflection hovered beside the ship's image. "They will not attack the station," she said. "Not yet. They will wait. But they will send a signal. A demand. And if you don't answer with violence, they will." Moments later, the signal came. Not in words, but in pulses, short bursts of energy. A code as old as her people's first ships. It was simple and cruel. "Deliver the traitor or face destruction." The room froze. No one spoke. No one moved. Jace looked at Liara, expecting fear. But she stood tall. "I must speak to them myself," she said. "Not with weapons, with truth. One last time." Reese frowned. "They won't listen, you know that." Liara nodded. "Then I will let them see me. See what I've become. If I run, they win. If I hide, peace dies." A decision was made. The humans would not surrender her. But they would let her speak. One shuttle was prepped to take her alone to the edge of space, where the Silence-class carrier hovered like a shadow against the stars. Jace refused to stay behind. "I'm going with her," he said. "If this is the last moment, I'm not letting her face it alone." No one stopped him. They knew better now. What they shared was more than alliance. It was something stronger than rules. Something built in fire and frost. Inside the small shuttle, Liara sat beside Jace with her hands folded. I am not afraid, she said. But I am not foolish either. If I fail, they may destroy us both. Jace looked at her with steady eyes. Then we speak together. Or fall together. When the shuttle reached the alien vessel, it was pulled into a docking ring without resistance. The hallway they entered was cold and silent. No welcome. No guard. Just empty metal walls that hummed with hidden power. At the chamber's center stood 3 masked figures. The Elders of Silence. They had no eyes, no mouths, only smooth silver. Masks. Leora stepped forward. Her voice echoed in the frozen space. I am Leora, born of ice, once a tool, now free. I bring no weapon, only the truth I have seen. Humanity is not weakness, it is warmth, it is choice. And I choose it. One of the elders stepped forward, a slow movement. The mask tilted, a sound rang out, a deep vibration. Not words, but meaning. It asked one thing. Do you deny your blood? Leora closed her eyes. Then she opened them again. No, she said. I honor my blood. But I will not carry its hate. There was silence, then movement. The elders turned their backs and walked away. The walls pulsed once. A final signal. You are no longer one of us. Jace stepped forward. What does that mean? He asked. Leora turned toward him slowly, her voice calm. It means I am free. But they will come again. Others. And next. Time, they won't walk away. Asterisk. The shuttle pulled away from the Silence-class carrier, drifting into the dark of space once more. Neither Jace nor Leora spoke as the stars stretched out before them. The silence behind them was louder than any threat, but the danger was not over. It had only changed shape. Jace looked across at her. They let us go, he said quietly. That doesn't feel like mercy, Leora nodded. It's not. It's a message, a final warning. I am nothing to them now. That makes me dangerous in a different way. Back at the orbital station, they were met not as enemies or fugitives, but as survivors. General Reese met them at the landing bay, flanked by high-ranking officials. No weapons were drawn. There were no cages or questions shouted. Only silence and waiting. Reese walked up to Leora first. Did they say anything? He asked. Leora raised her chin. They said I am no longer one of them, which means I am yours to deal with now. Jay stepped between them. She doesn't belong to anyone, he said. She's earned her place. You saw what she risked. She chose peace, when she could have chosen revenge. The general studied them both, then gave a sharp nod. The council has agreed. She will be protected, watched, yes, but not imprisoned. You've both bought time. Let's use it wisely. That night, Leora stood again at the large window in her room, watching Earth from orbit. It spun below like a living jewel, full of noise and heat. A world she had once sworn to fear. Now it was the only place she wanted to be. Jace joined her, holding 2 cups of warming fluid. We're not out of danger, he said. But we've made a crack in the ice. That's how the thaw begins. She took the cup from him, her hands steadier now. I want to go down there, she said. To the surface. To walk where people live. I want to feel the dirt. The rain, the wind that isn't full of war. Jace smiled and nodded. We'll go. You'll see places your people never imagined. You'll taste food that isn't rationed. And you'll learn that humans are more than stories told in fear. Weeks passed, then months. Leora became a quiet but powerful voice in the talks that followed. The ceasefire turned into dialogue. She met with human leaders. She spoke to alien defectors. Not all listened, but some did. And that was enough. She no longer wore armor. Her clothing was simple, earth-made. She walked freely through the station, though guards were always nearby. Not to protect humans from her, but to protect her from the ones still watching. Jace stayed close. He became more than a soldier. He was a bridge now. The first human many aliens trusted, simply because Liara did. His quiet strength gave weight to her words. Their bond turned into something more than duty. One evening, while walking through a garden dome, she reached for his hand without speaking. He took it, warm and steady. She looked up and whispered, "I never thought I could feel this way. Alive, free, human." He looked at her and smiled. "You're not human. But you're something better. You're what comes next. A new alliance." Was born slowly, fragile like ice forming on calm water. But it held. Small groups of her people broke away from the old rule. Messages were sent. Truth spread, not fast, but real. Liara stood before the Earth Council months later and made her final speech. "I am the proof that hate can be unlearned," she said. "I was made to be cold. I chose to be warm. And now I ask you to believe that others like me can change too." The vote passed. Earth would open limited talks with the alien factions. Ready for peace. Liara would serve as liaison. Jace would command her protection team. They were no longer just a pair caught in war. They were the first of something new. Later that night, she sat alone by the window again. Snow drifted outside the dome, artificial but beautiful. Jace walked up beside her. "You good?" he asked. She nodded and smiled gently. "I'm not fading anymore," she said. "This time I'm staying."